Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Yes, it's me, Egbert. As the new owner of this station, I want to make sure we have the best talent on the air. That's why I've decided to ban all real estate agents and only have real talkers like Brad and John. Here they are, B and J.
You know, I've talked to Egbert about that, and I think I may have him convinced that he's got the wrong attitude there. That we try to be all-inclusive, and that if Rick and Tracy Ellis want to come on the radio with us, no, seriously, we should be more than happy to. I mean, you know, to the point where, see, this is the interesting thing. When I ran the talk station before, when we had the mouth, and I had Brian Nieves on the mornings, I would have people call all the time and complain about him. And traditionally, they were, or typically they were Democrats, and they hated him because he was Republican. And I would say to them, "Come on and talk to him. You know, come on here and talk to him." And they would never do it. Well, I'm not going to do that. Well, look, you know, you can call me, and I know what you ultimately want. You want me to take him off the air, but yet you don't want to essentially go on the air and voice your disagreement with him. And no. And even to the point where I told you the bizarre story that his wife, who worked at one of the competing radio stations, not Brian's wife, but the mayor of Washington, Dick Stratman, who ran for the Senate position in the primary, very hotly contested primary, she called me up, actually sent me a nasty email, which was sort of interesting. She sent it on her radio station's signature, on her radio station's account, essentially telling me she's going to turn me into the FCC. Wow, nice broadcast action there, right? You know, take care of your fellow broadcast, like I talk about all the time.
Yeah, crabs in a barrel, Brad. That's the whole philosophy, it seems like. But by the way, Brad, I mean, you know, as a great real estate person once told me, I don't trust radio people. So I don't know if I can even trust that sentence from you, Brad. Who trusts radio people?
That's not... That wasn't said to you. That was said to me.
Oh, that's right. That was said to you, who is a radio person, by somebody who wanted to be a radio person. By
Rick Ellis. Yeah, he said they don't trust radio people.
Hey, tell your FCC story. I want to hear it.
Okay. This is the second time this has happened, where something that has come out as far as the FCC is concerned, it involves our stations, and was, I don't want to say big news, but was interesting news, and only one reporter called me. Only one. Same thing happened when we got the call letters of crap. I got one call. I take that back. I got one phone call. The morning, what happens is the FCC, when they I think this is true of a lot of the government agencies, they update their websites, and they update at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So anything that happened the day before shows up at 5 in the morning, and then you know, everybody looks at it and saying, okay, so lady from Inside Radio calls me, and she says, I just want to make sure that this is true, that you got the call letters crap, K-R-A-P? Yes, that's true. Okay, thank you. And then it was about a week later where Dan Caesar from the Post-Dispatch, who, by the way, is a great reporter. Most of the time he's an editor. I think he's still there, isn't he?
I don't know if he's still there or not, but and he kind of does a media analysis of the media, doesn't he?
Right, he does, and specifically sports media. He's always talking about that kind of stuff.
Really good.
Yeah, took me out to lunch, and we had a very nice, I mean, he paid for it and everything. We had a very nice lunch, and probably after that, there were probably 60 or 70 stories that popped up. And I'm not exaggerating about sports crap and crap, the call letters and the whole bit. And nobody ever called me. And it was all essentially Dan Caesar's article just being rewritten. You could tell there were sections of the article that people just lifted, like whole paragraphs at a time. Okay, so recently had this happen where I had one guy call me about something, an FCC filing, and I'm literally pumping gas at a gas station. And the guy calls me up, and I had no idea this would actually had happened with the FCC. He calls me up and he starts peppering me with questions. I go, look, I'm pumping gas at the gas station. I have no idea what you're talking about. Can I get back to my office? Can I call you back and let me go look at this, and I'll discuss this with you? By the time I got back to my office, he'd already published the report, on his site, and he quoted me as saying, "I'm at the gas station pumping gas. Can I get back to you?"
You're kidding me.
No, I swear to God. And the other thing was he used a term in the headline which really ticked me off. And I will not say it on the air, but it really ticked me off because, once again, it was fanning the flames. It was very derogatory. And so, long story made short, I got my problem taken care of with the FCC. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. And I email him. I go, hey, you're not going to write a story about me again? And he goes, why should I? I go, it's all taken care of. You told me, well, I say what the headline of the story said, I was doomed, D-O-O-M-E-D. I'm doomed. In other words, when someone says, hey, your business is doomed, what does that mean?
It's going out of business. It's a sure thing.
Right, it's gone. It's gone. So he puts that in the headline. So I said to him, I should send you this. You get a kick out of this. I said to him, I want you to write in the headline that I'm undoomed.
Yeah.
And he says he wouldn't do that. So then he says, I got my recorder running. Will you give me a quote? And I says, yes, we fixed everything. I'm now the queen of all media.
That's great.
Now
he didn't ask what your pronouns are, so that could work.
He put that in the article too, which is sort of funny. But he's the only guy that called me. And once again, I mean, I worked with some incredible reporters back in the day at the old KSOQ. At one point in time, John Auble worked for us. He did the morning newscast. Yeah,
the good old John Auble. I think we talked about him on our very first show, Brad.
John Auble was the reporter's reporter. And I know there are a lot of people did not like John because of the fact that he was one of those guys that, he was like, a dog in a bone. You know what I mean? He just didn't give up on stuff. And to the point where he had sources. Sometimes I would sit in the newsroom, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell this. I would sit in the newsroom and I would listen to him work the phone. He would call. I mean, this is like pre-cell phone era. He would call his cop friends at home. Hey, Bill, you're off record. This is John Auble. No, off record. Tell me what's going on. And well, John, sometimes.
And they'd give him the real story because he had a relationship with them.
Right, because of the fact that he went. He was on the street. He'd shake their hand. Yep. Sometimes they'd go out for drinks or whatever it was. He had a relationship with. Not that they would give him a proper or improper access. If there was something that they couldn't talk about, they would tell him that. But for the most part, and once again, you don't see those reporters anymore. And the sad part of it is, what's it gotten down to? There's so many of the reporters who, let's be honest. Most of the reporters on TV, male and female, it's eye candy, that's what it is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and not to interrupt, but a lot of times you can tell, I think of most of them as news readers. Because they can take a press release that comes from the governor's office, they can take a quote from the opposition, and then read the quotes.
Well, see, that's the movie Anchorman, which, if you remember the one scene where they would complain he'd read anything in the teleprompter.
The teleprompter just went nuts.
And they put the F-bomb in the teleprompter or something like that, and he just read it and didn't even realize what he read. He's just like a machine, He just
And I do think, I don't like the whole both sides are wrong thing. But if you look at it, let's go back to the corporate communication side. If you look at it from a corporate communication side and you're giving the reporter nothing and you don't have a relationship with that reporter, it's hard to blame the reporter for just pulling quotes from a press release or giving a statement. There's very little incentive, it seems, as somebody who did this for quite a while, for 12 and a half years, there's very little incentive to build relationships with reporters if all they're going to do is pull a couple sentences from a press release. Now, the way that you build those relationships is over time. You have trust with reporters, whether you consider them friendly or unfriendly. They know that the number of conversations, and during the Monsanto era, let's make this about me for a minute, Brad. I had the freedom when it came to some of these high-profile things to have conversations where I say, okay, and one of my bosses taught me this, to just say, okay, are we off the record or are we just talking here? And to give them context that might not put our company in the best light, but gives them for us to help the reporter and say, we are going to say this. Our opponents are going to say this, but here's why they're wrong. And here's what you need to ask the people who oppose us. And they won't be able to answer that question. But the broader point, Brad, is you have to invest time in those relationships. And if you're a reporter whose only goal is to spend 2 years at the Post-Dispatch before you go to a better newspaper, or you only want to spend 2 years at KMOV before you go to a Chicago market, you don't care about building a relationship with people.
Well, isn't that sort of like spending 2 years as the
Attorney General,
and then
then running for U.S. Senate?
You're not going to use that job as a stepping stone to a higher platform?
Cynics like Brad Hildebrand would make that point, I'm sure.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's change directions here for a minute. Travis Kelce, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of negative vibes yesterday about Travis Kelce. The scene was apparently he was taken out of the game for a couple of plays, and during one of the plays there was a fumble, and he was not happy about the fact that he was on the sidelines, and he went over and I don't want to say chest bump, almost like he stomach bumped.
He checked him. I'm not a hockey player, but he checked him, right?
Right, and almost
a little check.
Almost knocked him over. Now,
yeah.
Andy Reid, I heard this yesterday. Andy Reid is 65. He's the oldest coach in the NFL, okay? 65. And doesn't look in the best of shape. Okay, let's be honest, he doesn't look in really good shape. Matter of fact, someone that I know told me that I didn't see this stuff, but during the pregame show, he came out in those stretch like athletic shorts, and apparently he has some kind of, I don't know what this, some kind of disease where he has problems with the veins in his legs and the veins in his
like varicose veins?
No, he's got something else. Maybe varicose, but they look nasty. And supposedly because of the fact that he has this disease in his legs, he can grow no hair in his legs.
Oh.
And this person was telling me, "Oh my God, it was terrible. I can't believe it." This was a woman. She says, "It was terrible. I can't believe they did that. Blah 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 blah." And I'm going like, okay, so they're making fun of Andy. So. What do you think? The thing, you as John Combes, PR guy, PR flack, media guy, the thing I keep hearing is now, because of the fact that Travis Kelce obviously harassed his boss and physically bumped him, almost knocking him over, that Taylor Swift's people are going to go, you need to drop that guy.
Interesting theory. Absolutely not. Because here's what it proves. It allows Taylor Swift an opportunity to say, and I talked to my man and I told him we don't treat people that way. It gives her an opportunity once again to be like, my man is such a savage, but I'm able to civilize him. And I told him he was wrong for that. And I gave him a copy of my Time magazine article and I signed it for the coach, and I said, sorry, my boyfriend is a big bully. Love, Taylor. She'll find some kind of a way to make a positive spin out of it.
You're being facetious, John.
No, I'm being dead serious.
Really? Seriously?
And I also think here too, Brad, if Travis Kelce hadn't been in the spotlight, if he didn't know that cameras were on him at all times, he probably wouldn't have pulled this tough guy act with his coach. Do you want to be in a relationship with a man who lacks impulse control?
Well, no, hold on a minute. But see, that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is that the naysayers, and this is what I was, getting yesterday. The naysayers are saying that he has anger issues, and women should stay away from dudes who have anger issues. Anger issues should be a deal breaker. If you start dating a guy and like, for example, how many times have I heard this story? You've read this story about like a man and a woman go out on a date, or let's say they're dating for a while, and the man goes to the restaurant. They're sitting there, and the man is nasty to the waiter or waitress. So,
and it turns off his date.
Well, the things I read from the woman's perspective, you're done with that guy. That guy is it's a turnoff.
Right.
If that guy is mean and nasty to someone who's working and trying to make a living, and even still, essentially, you're putting yourself. Well, I'm a customer, and you're just the wait staff. That.
You're putting yourself above that person.
Right. Bang! It's over with. Get rid of that guy, because that's just a small indicator of the thing you're going to deal with for the rest of your life, because he's ultimately going to treat you that way. I mean, I'm saying this from the women's perspective because of the fact that he's the dominant one and he's in charge.
Yeah, I understand that logic, sure.
But so you don't see that like with the Taylor Swift thing, that her people would say, yeah, bad image. The guy's got anger issues. You don't want to have that. You don't want to. What about all your female fans? They're going to go like, oh, Taylor's succumbed to some guy's charms who's just a big bully.
I don't know. I mean, I think the flip side of that is, well, he was showing passion and he cares so much about winning that he just went a little bit overboard. Listen, I'm no Travis Kelce fan. I'm not a fan of Travis Kelce, but I think that there's a way for her people, so to speak, to be like, yeah, Travis got really heated, but, he apologized to the coach, and, Taylor talked to him about it. Whatever happens, Taylor will have herself elevated over Travis.
Well,
like Travis, she is the star, and Travis is the dumb lug boyfriend.
See, what's interesting is you said it there a minute ago, and you sort of were angling around what my idea is. I love people that have a passion for what they do. And obviously, he was essentially saying, Coach, Coach, if I was in there, that wouldn't have happened.
That would not have happened.
That would not have happened, and once again, I read a lot of stuff yesterday. I read a lot of stuff on this that the sports guys were saying, hey, man, there is no I in team. It's a team sport. You can't go to the coach and say, Coach, because of the fact that you took me out of the game and you put somebody else in, they blew that play. It's your fault, not mine, because if I would have been in, I would have done that. I don't make mistakes.
There's a difference, though, between having a passion for what you do and lacking impulse control and yelling at your 65-year-old coach who you allegedly have a good relationship with. And if I'm not mistaken, that play was before halftime, right?
Yeah, when the team wasn't doing so well. Yeah.
Yeah. So right. You take that into the locker room, and when you're behind closed doors, first of all, you've had a few minutes to cool off. But again, if you're a woman, do you want to be in a relationship with a guy that comes home from a bar and you get in a fight and he, throws a phone against the wall, or he puts his fist through a wall? Do you want to, what does that say about the guy's impulse control?
Okay. well, let's take it the other extent too. It's funny. Last night, I watch a lot of videos, and I watch some of these guys who buy cars at salvage auctions and things like that. There was an interesting one that came up last night that I have to talk about. Let's talk about that next break, because this is from the women's perspective. Okay. This is where the woman is the one who has the anger issues.
Oh, let's talk about it. Yes.
And it's actually sort of it's a sad story in the respect that something happened that shouldn't have happened, but by the same token, it's sort of like, okay, wonder what that guy did that got her so mad.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?